Gia here. I filmed this video before Jonathan Anderson's recent Haute Couture show. I was already starting to identify that he is essentially able to take the heritage and history of a brand and like deconstruct it and then reassemble it in a way where you're able to almost zoom in on these particular elements of what makes it, you know, their own brand. So like he did this with Loewe and, you know, like the tomato, for instance, in like Spain, and then like Dior with the floral. He's starting with like, you know, botanical embellishments. Yeah, like I just love going on his page and seeing like the ladybug, and I'm just like, wow, it's almost like he took the setting of Dior and he's like showing us these little pieces, and it make like every little piece I see reminds me of Dior. Okay, and I think that's a very special skill to have, where you can take something apart and you're still able to identify it as what it was originally, even though it's been reconstructed into something else. I think a powerful component of storytelling is being able to identify which elements of it can be considered iconic. So like, for instance, when you're telling the Peanuts story, right? It's called Peanuts, but Charlie Brown and Snoopy, they're the icons, right? So like, they're that iconic image. If you have like Snoopy or Charlie Brown, that kind of represents the whole Peanuts gang, you know? I feel like Jonathan Anderson has that skill where he's able to walk into a business and identify that iconic piece and then like commercialize it from that point forward. He says, couture is a lens through which I can examine the present, reassemble it, and imagine it anew. And this is amazing. I absolutely love this collection, by the way. I love all of the floral pieces. It's like Dior. Flowers are the source of every fragrance, skincare, and makeup we create. Often perceived as ornamental, they are powerful engines of regeneration for biodiversity. I wonder if like the push also for Jonathan Anderson's like the focus of flowers in Dior, well, it definitely says like flowers are in danger, flowers as the spearheads of sustainable innovation. He really talked about sustainability being integrated in his practice, not something like an afterthought, like, oh, we need to make this practice sustainable. Like, sustainability needs to be part of the process. And I think that is also speaking to the integrity of the work that goes in behind creating these products, which was a huge focus that he had at Loewe. And I think he's just bringing that kind of element here in Dior. I love how he's like zoomed in on, you know, how Dior uses flowers specifically. And honestly, I think that could be like a whole focus of this video as well, as just like, that's his means of doing it. So it's like flowers of regeneration. And if you think about regenerating means to like take something with the matter or elements that was already there and like generating it's being like reassembled essentially. So like, I think that really aligns with his ethos of like being able to take elements of something, deconstruct it, put it together into something new. And flowers kind of like signify that regeneration. They're able to grow from like rich soil. And yeah, I think there's layers to this. And I absolutely love his recent collection. I just love all of the floral pieces. And I think if I were to walk away with some takeaway from that, I feel like that is his way of like introducing his approach and application to Dior.
This video is solely for entertainment purposes. Jonathan Anderson is now at Dior. I thought this would be a good time to reflect on his time at Loewe. I want to read a few articles. I also want to look at a few runways and try to identify these two elements of craftsmanship and storytelling. According to this Harper's Bazaar article, Jonathan Anderson's first show with Loewe was spring-summer 2015. While my chapter draws to a close, Loewe's story will continue for many years to come, and I will look on with pride watching it continue to grow the amazing Spanish brand I once called home. He really brought to life, I think, what the brand already represented. I heard that he's very good when it comes to like merchandising, but he has definitely become a master of commercialization. His visual, like the brand of Loewe, into a marketable product that people want to buy. Iconic image. So like, for instance, the Loewe tomato. Loewe's story began as a workshop and collective dedicated to leather making, and ever since they have valued artisanal techniques in their approach to modern design and refined manufacturing, passing down their knowledge and wisdom from one generation of master artisans to the next. The rich legacy of craftsmanship remains the living soul of the house. I mean, many companies try to give some type of flexibility for their designers to express their interpretation of what the brand means to them. Loewe in particular looks for craftsmanship. Loewe respects expertise where it is. So they leave the experts to their craft. For instance, when it comes to content creation, I feel like Loewe partners with a lot of content creators where they're making content that they would naturally make for themselves.
Do you want some? It has like 4 espresso shots in it.
Are you cold?
Yeah, but you know, I couldn't ruin the outfit. Wait, I love this store.
What's in my bag? Like,
if I were to show you these 2 shapes, if I told you that one of these shapes is called a kiki and the other is called a booba, which one would...
Like stuff like that, but then, you know, there's Loewe being naturally woven into their content. Leaning on that as a marketing strategy is why people say one of fashion's most original thinkers. So I found this article that's 7 years old. It's from The Guardian called Jonathan Anderson's Craft is an Antidote to Digital Media. When I say he values craftsmanship, what does that mean? His grandfather was a textile designer, took him to the factory where he worked in Northern Ireland. He got to see camo fabric being screen printed for the army. He felt that within the first 3 weeks at working at Loewe that he wanted to start a craft prize, an obligation to help craft practitioners to redefine craft and prevent it from being seen as a lower form than art. He sees craftsmanship and craft as an integral part of the creation of art.
Editing Gia here. I forgot to include another point, but this is essentially why his focus of storytelling is the entire conception of art to the execution. His whole storytelling narrative that I find very interesting is how when someone's asking you to explain your artwork or what does this mean or where does this come from, he starts at the story of how it was created, what materials went into it, where those materials were sourced from, what expertise the people that created it have. He really dives into the whole story of what makes this an artistic piece, where the consumer can see right up front the heritage and the luxury that they're really buying into. I think Loewe struggled before to communicate that so overtly. They were well respected as a luxury brand. They were well respected for their craftsmanship. I feel like Jonathan Anderson's goal was to retell that story in a modern way, starting with what exists. He didn't recreate the story. He didn't tell us a new story. Kind of use modern day tools like social media, like the interpersonal relationship that an influencer has with their audience, to introduce a more authentic connection with his new consumer market. Also, if you notice, a lot of the advertisements that were made during this time were just the construction of how things were made. It was almost like documentary style. And I think that really feeds into our generation's current focus on intellectualism and knowledge and being able to source where things come from. And it's all tying down to this urge of being able to tell what's real, to be able to still maintain authentic experiences, and to know that what you're buying into will provide you with some sort of value. Especially in today's attention economy, you could be scrolling for hours and you feel like you wasted your time. You just watched, like a 10-minute video on how something was constructed. You're walking away with knowledge, you're walking away with understanding, you're walking away with language that can be used to articulate and prove proximity to certain spaces and certain cultures.
To appreciate the existence of art is to appreciate the craft and the work that goes in behind it. He hates it when people use sustainability as a marketing tool, and he sees it as an obligation. He tries to work it into objects so that they become timeless, or that they will be rediscovered in a secondhand shop and someone will buy them again. If we're talking about the world of AI and how things can be so easily generated, craftsmanship, I feel like, is being undervalued in exchange for efficiency.
When it comes to respecting tradition in a world full of modern technology, I think that Jonathan Anderson's response is similar to that of what I've heard from leading industry professionals and like business, and their approach to keeping up with the current market. Especially in luxury, we know that we're buying into this heritage branding, but what does heritage branding mean
so many years past its initial conception. And now we have a new generation of storytellers, okay? And I think especially a new generation of storytellers that value things like sustainability and secondhand fashion, being able to tell the story of a brand's design that goes way back to a previous generation. We are seeing families, you know, hand down very valuable pieces. Like, that's what luxury is all about. And I think that instead of shying away from that, brands are leaning into it, the ones that really want to stay ahead. And in a way, their approach almost consistently preserves the tradition of telling the stories that come with these pieces. The marketing industry has reached a place now where influencer marketing, social media marketing is just something you can't ignore. You kind of have to have a system around that if you want to stay ahead and stay competitive. But now it's not just about as much as you produce or who is, you know, getting the most views in the quickest amount of time. It's about how meaningful is the, you know, how meaningful is your voice? How meaningful is what you're contributing to the conversation? We are moving away from a time where it was all about, you know, just making noise, just getting noticed, going viral, being seen. But now we see how easy that is, right? And
we're in a world where it's like, well, what can we appreciate about our human skills, and what do we humans naturally bring to the table that separate us from technology?
Luxury wants to preserve its position. My point is, I think that brands are taking advantage of the fact that we have new storytellers in a new generation, and instead of fighting it, they are working with these creators to tell more authentic stories that will allow the heritage and luxury of their brands to carry through generations and last multiple traditions as they were intended.
It's our ability to be creative and dynamic and innovative. The consciousness behind it, that's what keeps it alive. So now that I have shared a bit of my rambled thoughts of why I am so fascinated with the craftsmanship and storytelling of Jonathan Anderson's Loewe, I want to take the time to react to his Spring/Summer 2026 Dior show. According to this article, Jonathan Anderson is not afraid of history. In fact, he reveals it. Discovering and framing aspects of the past is part of what made him so successful in transforming Loewe from a dull leather company into a vibrant art culture fashion phenomenon. Tweed bar jacket and flying buttress cargo shorts, 18th century frock coats and white jeans, and so on. Rep ties and chambray shirts. All of this enough to shift a fashion aesthetic. He was looking at the tension, the push and pull between dressing up and dressing down. Perhaps both the conventional and the avant-garde shopper will very much agree on the simple yet stylish array of capes in the collection. This collection is very lovely. Dialogue between past and present, bold and calm, where silhouettes become both familiar and surprising. I love the use of minimal, lots of frills. Love the use of white. The silhouettes are very, if you've noticed, the shapes are very similar. It's like, I'm trying to say a trapezoid type of shape. There's a lot of collared tops. And there's a lot of pulling. So like, whether that is the way that something drapes and it's kind of like cinched, the way that things are cinched kind of creates this almost like dragging effect across the chest. I also love the use of bows. And on that note, guys, I think I'm going to end this video here. Essentially, I just wanted to give my brain some space to talk about Jonathan Anderson's Loewe, but I'm looking forward to see what this new designer brings. And yeah, I think as long as the focus is consistent, then there's lots of great things we can expect. Focus not only on craftsmanship, but now that I'm seeing at Dior heritage, he has a huge respect for what has come before him. Like, he does not introduce something that is meant to overpower what already exists. He introduces something that takes the beauty and the expertise, the reputation, and transforms it into something that can exist and evolve into a modern time. Loewe was a unique situation in which he had a lot that he was able to transform and introduce on his own to kind of bring life to. It was almost like Loewe had roots for him to nourish, and Dior is already like a tree, you know. Dior has already been grown, and it's like, what will Jonathan Anderson do to make that space his own?
Thank you guys so much for watching. This video was fun to put together. If any of these videos or these topics interest you, I encourage you to like, comment, and subscribe for more. And please comment down below specifically how you feel about Jonathan Anderson leaving Loewe and how you feel about his first collection at Dior.